Good morning, 6th grade. Today is Monday, April 6th, and it is our first day of distance learning on YouTube. So I hope that you enjoy this method of learning during distance learning, and I hope that it works out well for you. I'm going to try to be in front of you as much as I can during all of this. You'll probably get tired of seeing me, but here I am. I wish we were all together. I've said that over and over as a teacher. It's so much easier for me to see you and know that you're comprehending what I'm saying, but we're going to make the best of these circumstances. Before we begin our day today, I wanted to start off with a little devotion that's kind of been on my heart and my mind, and I've jotted down a few notes, so I'm going to read some of it. But let's start out, if you have your Bibles with you this morning, we're going to open up to Psalms 1:3. You should be pretty familiar with where Psalms is at in the Old Testament. I'll say it again, Psalms 1 and 3. While you are looking for that, in case you're wondering where I am of course at home, and I am in my basement. So I'm talking to myself down here in my basement. But I'm going to be trying to teach down here as much as I can. Sometimes I might have to be upstairs because at the same time that I'm teaching, I'm trying to help Landry and Isabella with their things, as well as Riley, and I really don't help Avery much with college, but sometimes Riley needs a little coaxing along. But let's go ahead and read Psalms 1 and 3. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. And I read that from the NIV. Most of you have the King James Version, so yours might be a little bit different. But let me talk for a minute about this season of life that we're in right now. It is definitely a trying time. I'm sure you can tell that in the news that you hear around you and the actions that you see in your parents. It is a trying time. Each of us struggle with different things. Some of you are struggling with boredom. Some of us are struggling with eating too many homemade snacks. Some of us are missing our families, missing our friends, and that part is very, very hard. But how are you dealing with these trials that you are facing? Have you let them upset you? I hope you've not let them question the goodness of God, because regardless of what is going on, God is still good. He is still with us. Today's truth: a life that is planted in God, please do know that it does prosper. When your foundation is in the life, when your foundation in life is in God and His Word, then no matter what things we go through, we will prosper. Don't forget, God has good things in store for you. Each and every one of you, Callaway, Mari, Ella, Owen, God has good things in store for us. He will see us through this trying time, and yes, it will end. He still loves you. In fact, His love is probably felt even closer than we felt it before this. You'll come out on the other side a better person. Be encouraged today. Even though times are hard, we still serve a good God. God is going to see us through. Stay close to Him by reading your Bible every day. There are no excuses right now not to read your Bible. No excuses whatsoever. So keep yourself planted in His Word. You'll come through this better than before. And one more time, let's go up and read our verse. That person, hopefully that's going to be you, is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Let's all bow our heads right where you're at in your home. Let's bow our heads and pray over our day today. We need the Lord's strength through this today, and pray with me. Pray out loud along in your home. Dear Jesus, I love you, Lord. I thank you, Lord, for your goodness to each and every one of my students. I thank you for the lives that they lead. I thank you for their parents that are keeping them safe at home during this time. Above all else, Lord, I'm thankful that you are with us. You will never leave us nor forsake us, God. You are as close as the mention of your name. Jesus, I ask as we begin our school day today that you help us to do our very best. Help me as my sixth graders teacher to relay the information they need to learn at the very best that they can. Lord, I thank you for your presence in our homes, your presence in our heart and our minds at this time. I ask that you watch over and keep us. I ask that your angels of protection surround each and every home of my sixth grade. Lord, I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for your love. I thank you, dear Jesus, for all that you've done to us. You are a great, big God, and I worship you today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen and amen. We are going to begin today with math. So if you want to get your math books and get ready for that, you'll also need your speed drill. And I will see you in a minute in math class. And here we are in math. On your syllabus for this week, the very first thing that you are supposed to do is your speed drill. So let's go ahead and get that out. I do want to go over that a little bit. You should have all had a speed drill in your packet, and we are doing lesson 101 today in our speed drill. You are going to be finding the perimeters of these rectangles. I hope you all have your formula sheet. If it was in your locker, then I definitely sent it home. If you do not have your formula sheet and you would like to go back through your book and make you a new one, you are more than welcome to do that. It will be very helpful in the coming days for math. Today we're just working on perimeter, and as you can see on my whiteboard behind me, which is all going to take some getting used to for us, I have your perimeter formula already written. You can write straight on this speed drill because you'll be turning this into me on Thursday in your packet. So go ahead and do your work here. You will want to write your formula for me each and every time. Remember, that's very important that your formula is written. Also, it is very important that your unit is in your answer, and of course we're kind of used to calling unit our label. So if you look at your very first speed drill, it's in yards. Your second one is in feet. So make sure your unit/label is always in your answer. We will not be timing these speed drills during distance learning, so take your time on it. It's great review, it's great practice. I want to do the first one with you. One other thing I want to remind you, and I'm going to be reviewing as much as I can because it's been a while since we have been together. So those of you that are math geniuses and you don't need the review, you can tune out, but many of us do need the review. So don't forget that your length is always going to be your longest. If they don't tell you what length and width is, for example, the second one on the top row of your speed drill, it says 6 feet by 9 feet. So what's our length? Our length is going to be 9 feet because length is the longest. Hope you all remember that. Let's do the first one together. It's 17 yards is our length. 9 yards is our width. So we're just going to substitute those numbers in. P equals 2 times, what did I say? 17 plus 2 times our width is 9. Substitute those numbers in. Now we're ready to do this work. Remember, if you cannot do this in your head, you are welcome to go off to the side or on a scrap piece of paper and do that. I know I'm going to probably do it fast, but you go ahead and take your time. You do not have to rush. That's what's nice about distance learning. You can take your time. So 17 times 2, 34 plus 2 times 9 is 18. Now we are ready to add our 34 plus our 18. Again, if you want to go over to the side and do that, you're welcome to. Our perimeter equals, gonna add to our 12, carry our 1, 52, and what is our unit? 52 yards. I was going to say questions on that, but you can't ask me questions. I hope that helps, and I hope that you can see that on my whiteboard. If not, maybe you can zoom in or make your screen a little bit bigger to help you. So that is your speed drill today. So go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. You can pause me while you do that. Maybe that will be easier for you to concentrate. Don't forget, show me your formula. Make sure and give me your unit. All right, once you're done with your speed drill, let's open up to page 197. We're just going to do a little bit of review, and then we're going to go back several pages, or forward several pages in our book. So, Introduction to a Circle, page 197. We worked on circles before spring break, but I want to review them a little bit. Here's one of our charts up here. Again, I hope you can see it. Maybe I can figure out a way to make this a little bit better for you later. But we have a cute little fox here, and he's holding our circle. Of course, we know that the yellow thing is a circle. That's taking us way back to kindergarten. Very important word for you to remember is your diameter. Please remember your diameter here in blue goes straight across. It is also number 3 on page 197 in your yellow book. A diameter is a line segment that goes through the center of the circle. Both end points are on your circle. Another very important word is your radius. Remember, radius is half of your diameter. I'm sorry, diameter is longer, radius is half of that. That's number 2 on your yellow box. The radius is the length of a straight line drawn from the center of a circle. All radii in the same circle are congruent. That means if you have several radii, they are all congruent, they are all the same length. Also, here's some of our formulas. Circumference, which we haven't gotten to yet. Area of a circle using 2 different formulas. You can use the radius formula, or you can use your diameter formula. Don't forget our pi is not apple or cheesecake, it is 3.14. Very important review there. Most of this is on page 197. If you ever need to flip back for that review, you can find that there. Now, we are heading right over to, I know that we're skipping a couple of pages, but most of that's review, and I want to get into the meat of the matter a little more today. So we are going to page 221, measuring angles in a circle. And there should be a brain pop that has popped up on your screen, and maybe one other video. I'm not sure if I'm going to link that in yet, but you're welcome to pause me anytime and watch those. They're going to be very helpful to you. If you want to take the quiz, go ahead and take the quiz. It's all up to you because you have plenty of time to do all of that. But you know how much I love brain pop, and it's really going to be helpful. It kind of helps get in our mind with that handy dandy robot that's on there. So go ahead and pause me and watch those if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and keep on teaching, so after that, come back to me. Measuring angles in a circle. Please know that degrees is a word that you're going to become very familiar with in the next coming weeks. That does not mean temperature in the weather. We're not talking about 80 degrees outside. We're talking about degrees in a circle. Many of you have heard the term 360 degrees. I want you to get up and do that right now. Turn 360 degrees. You just made an entire circle. Now, if you do 180 degrees, you're going to make a half of a circle. Do that again. 180, 360. I'm going to get dizzy. Those are your degrees. They are important terms. Let's go ahead up to a couple different things I want to talk about. I'm not going to follow the yellow box, but you're welcome to follow the box. One thing that you, where do I want to go first? All right, let's go with the yellow box. Maybe that'll be easier for you guys. A circle is divided into into arcs, need new glasses, by the radii and or diameters at the center where the radii meet. And an angle is formed. You can even see that on my poster here. Between this radii and this half of the diameter, which is another radii, you have an angle that has formed right there. The center of that angle, which is also the center of our circle, is called the vertex. Everybody say vertex with me. Thank you. It's so good to hear you. As I said earlier, each circle contains 360 degrees. A degree is a unit used to measure the opening of an angle or an arc. Here's our arc out here on the outside, if you remember that from our review a couple weeks ago. It measures the arc or the opening, either one. It's the same measurement. And a protractor is used to measure these. I sent several messages on Jupiter's to let me know if you did not have a protractor, because I had bought a few to send with you Friday in your packets, but I didn't hear any messages from anyone. So I'm assuming that you have your protractor, and let me get mine. I have a nice big protractor. So this will be easy for you to see, which makes me very happy because I'm worried about us seeing everything at this point in these videos. But a protractor is an instrument used to measure the number of degrees in your angle. Let me see here if I want to talk any more about any of that on the side there. Let's go ahead to steps to measure an angle. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, some of my 6th graders in the past have had a little trouble with this just because they're not looking at the exact scale that they need to look at. So I want you to learn in the very beginning the difference between our 2 scales. Let's go over these directions in our yellow box. If necessary, use a straight edge to extend the radius beyond the circle in order to get an accurate reading. You can see over on your example on line or angle AOC, how they kind of took a red dotted line and extended that angle out a little bit. Sometimes I'll take my straight edge and it just extend the angles out, and you're welcome to do that too. It is helpful to do that. Number 2, place the vertex marker of the protractor exactly at the vertex of the angle and rotate the protractor until the horizontal line extending from the vertex marker of the protractor is along one edge of the radii of the angle. Again, big words. Let's do that together. First of all, here is the vertex. See that little dip of my protractor. So every center of the circle, I want to line up with that vertex. I bought an extra protractor that's going to look like several of yours. Let me open that. Sorry, should have already had that done. Y'all be patient with me. I'm new at all this like you are. Here is a protractor like you have. Now, the vertex of this protractor is going to be this hole in the middle of your protractor. Everybody see that? Get it in front of my hair, maybe it'll. That's going to be the vertex where you're going to line your vertex up. See these lines at the bottom, this line at the bottom of my protractor? That's the line. It's a black line there. It says Fiskars on top. That's the line that I'm going to line up the top, or not the top, one of the angles of my, start again, one of the lines of my angles. That's how I'm going to start that. So on my big one, I will just line up my vertex here in the middle and put my line right here because I can't see through this one. So I think we're ready. Don't get overwhelmed by this. We're going to get it. I promise. I'm going to keep on until we get it. Let's go on down to number 3. Read the scale of the protractor. Oh, that's what I, never mind. Let's do this. All right, so I'm going to draw me a handy dandy vertex here. I'm going to draw me a straight line, which I should have used a straight edge for. And let's see. I'm going to draw this. Now, if this was in a circle, and if it was easier, as we said earlier in our directions, to just take your straight edge and make this a little longer, you're welcome to do that, because sometimes they're easier to read when the lines are longer. You don't have to, but sometimes it is easier. Now, I'm going to line my vertex up. I hope you can see this. Line my little dippy vertex up with the center of my circle. My black line right here is going to go out to my scale. You'll see 2 scales here, one on the inside, one on the outside. Hope everybody's paying close attention. This is important. You always, always, always want to go to the 0 scale. When we start counting, where do we start counting at? we start counting at 80. Oh boy, we start counting at 0. So we have a 0 scale here and a 180 scale. We do not want to go to the 180 scale. That's, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we want to go to the 0 scale. Here we go. And you should have seen all this on your brain pot. We're going out to the 0 scale. We're going to follow it up, 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 and I didn't make a real good angle, but I was hoping I was 50, but I'm actually kind of close to 51 degrees. Can you see how I went up until this line met a number on my scale? And that says 51 degrees. Now, you're also going to see that 130. No, you don't want to go by that scale. You want to go by your 0 scale. Now, I'm going to show you a different angle. Let me erase this for you. See, I'm going to put a vertex on again. Let's make our a little bit straighter and nicer here. Let's make a nice open angle. You're going to learn soon. Oh, nice. You're going to learn soon that this is called an obtuse angle. Again, I'm going to measure my angle. I'm going to put my vertex on my vertex. I'm going to take my straight line out to my 0 side. I don't know if you can see this. My 0 side here, though, is on the outside this time. That's okay. It doesn't matter if it's on the outside or inside. You just want to start with 0. So I'm following this line out to my 0 side. I'm going to go up, 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 and around on my 0 side until I get to 130 degrees. Now, it is not 50 degrees. Because if I followed my 0 side over here, I'm not measuring this angle. I have to follow this line out and go up on my 0 side. So that is a big no. Hope that helps a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so let's go ahead and go down to our bookwork. Fill in the blanks. Class practice number 1. This is super easy. Some of these answers might be going back to page 197. I don't know, we'll see. But let's do all of these together. Number 1, a straight line from the center of the circle to a point on the circle is called a straight line from the center to a point line on the circle is called a radius. Write that in your blank. 1B, half of a circle, we should all know this, is a semicircle. Semicircle. And yes, those of you that are saying, do we really have to write this in our book? Yes, you do. Write it in your book. C, a circle has how many degrees? It is up in your yellow box if you're not sure. I'm going to tell you 360 degrees. 360 degrees. Write that down. D, you should all have one of these. D, a blank is used to draw a circle. One of these, they are called what? A compass is used to draw a circle. A protractor, and I've set mine down somewhere. My big yellow protractor is used to measure the degrees in an angle or in an arc. Go ahead and write that down. F, the center of the circle is the blank of the angle. The center of the circle, we're going to line that up every time, and what is it called? It's called our vertex. And G, at the center where the radii meet, your radii are meeting right here, and at the center where it meets, it makes what? It makes an angle. Angle. And don't spell it angel. It's A-N-G-L-E. We don't make an angel with 2 radii. And H, a semicircle has how many degrees? Full circle has 360, So half of that is 180 degrees. Now, here comes the fun part. You're going to get out your protractor and measure the angle, measure the degrees in each angle. Number 2 at the bottom. A, I want you to go ahead and do A, even though the answer is there for you. Don't know where I put my protractor. Let me look for it. Just so I'm doing every little thing with you here. Here it is. Gonna get my protractor. Gonna line my protractor up, my vertex up with the center of the circle, and I'm measuring angle ABC. A lot of people say, how do I know what angle ABC is? Follow it. You're gonna start at the letter A on your circle. Next, follow your line to B, and next, follow your line to C. Now, it's going to help on this one if you actually put your protractor upside down. Put your vertex on the center of the circle, and the line on your protractor needs to follow the center of your circle out to the letter A. It's a little confusing when you have to put your protractor upside down, so let's do it that way. So we're going out to A, we're going to our 0 side, and some of your protractors are not going to have a 0 on this side, but you know it's going to be 0 because you do see your 10. Does everybody see number 10? That's still your 0 side. Now we're going to follow that bottom scale all the way up. And if it helps to kind of draw that line C out, it's coming towards what number? Your answer is there for you, 120 degrees. It is not pointing to 60 because you have to use your 0 scale. I hope that's helpful to everybody. I want you to take a few minutes and do B, C, and D. Take a few minutes to measure those. I actually want you to put the answers B, C, and D on your notebook paper. I don't have that on your syllabus, but go ahead and do that. On your notebook paper, put number 2 with today's date at the top in math, just so I'll know what a lesson this is. And then put 2B, 2C, and 2D. I'm going to give you one more hint as you're measuring 2B. The answer to 2B is 60 degrees. Now, some of you might say, oh, well, I got 55 degrees. And some of you might say, oh, I got 65 degrees. I will tell you this, sometimes our protractors are a little different. So if your measurement is within 5 degrees of one side or 5 degrees in the other, I will still count it correct. So if you are anywhere from 55 degrees to 65 degrees on 2B, that will still be correct. I hope that helps everybody, just because those protractors are not always the same. Now, I'm not trying to rush you because you can go back and finish that up, but I do need to keep moving. So anytime that you need to pause me and finish this work, you are welcome to. So I'm gonna go on over to page 222. And it looks like on your syllabus, I have asked you to do numbers 3 and 4. Listen carefully on number 3. It says draw a circle. I'm going to walk you through this. So you're going to do this on your notebook paper so that I can grade it. Draw a circle with a radius of 1 inch. Mark the center of the circle. Now, from spring break, before spring break, we learned that the radius is what we need on our compass. The radius is going to, not the diameter, because the diameter will make it too big. So you're going to open your compass to 1 inch. I've got my pretty little pink one here. I'm opening to 1 inch. And on your notebook paper, you're going to put the point down and go around and make a circle. And you should have a circle with a radius of 1 inch. The next step on that, it says draw 3 radii. You can use your protractor as a straight edge. Make them nice and straight. Don't give me any wiggly lines. Give me nice, neat lines, please. Draw your 3 radii so that the circle is divided approximately into thirds. It just needs to look like that example there in your book. We're not measuring them at this point, and I'm not gonna make sure it's definitely thirds. So it just needs to look like the example. Now we are going, if you want to measure your angles to see if they're close to 120 degrees, you can, but we are not doing that. We're not doing measure the angles to see how closely. Don't worry about that fraction there, which equals 120 degrees. Don't let that throw you off. I'm just wanting to see your circle with a radius, a radii radius of 1 inch, and divide it into thirds. That's what I'm going to be looking for. Going down to number 4. This is some of your homework for today now that we've done our lesson. So I want you to do number 4, all of it on your notebook paper. And again, show me your formulas first. Give me your unit or your label, which is the same thing, unit/label, in your answer. Let's look at A. I don't think you're going to have any trouble with that. Now, both of those, remember we want to take 1/2 of one of those numbers because your formula is A equals 1/2 times B times H. Because this one, number 4, is looking for areas, you're always going to want to put square in your answer. Don't forget that. Both of these numbers, 14 and 18, are even, so it would be easy to take 1/2 of either one of those. So it doesn't matter which one you take, you'll still get the same answer. Let's look at B. Oh, I'm not liking B. Let's cross off B. You don't have to do B. Just because it's messing with a bunch of fractions, and that's not where I'm wanting your mind to go right now. Let's go ahead and go over to C. Now, your formula for area of a parallelogram is different than perimeter of a parallelogram. So go back and look at your formula sheet. Make sure your formula starts with A equals and not P equals. And D, you're looking for, oh, on this one, I'm glad I looked at this one. On D, it's telling you to find your area. Right here is formulas for that. You can use either, they're giving you your radius, so you want to use your formula for radius. A equals pi times r squared. Now, quick review on that. When we square something, we're not going to multiply it by 2. For example, 3 squared does not equal 6. No, 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 no. 3 squared, can you see this low? 3 squared equals what? 3 times 3, which equals, and I heard you all say 9. 3 squared equals 9. So here you have r squared, so it's not going to be, I'm sorry, here you have 4 squared because you have r equals 4 feet. So you're going to have A equals pi times r squared, and of course your pi is, I'm looking at D right now, I'm sorry, I know I'm rushing. A equals 3.14 times 4 squared, which is not going to be 8. Don't put 8 there for me. I know some of you want to. Moving on down to your review on number 5. I gave you circled problems on your syllabus, and here we go. I'm going to say them one more time. D, E, F, H, and J. Again, on H and J, do not multiply 3 times 5. Do not multiply 1.1 times 2. You're going to want to square those and then multiply 3 to the power of 5. Hope you remember how to do that. If not, look it up in your book. And that is Monday's math lesson. Please feel free to text me anytime or call me, whatever. I will try to help you if I can. And we will be going into language next. So I will see you in language. And we are back with language. I talked way too much in math today, too long, so I'm going to try to talk faster for language and keep you shorter for language. But I do want to do a review because we've not been together for so long, and also we're getting to the end of pronouns, which are the substitutes for what? Nouns. Very good. I need you guys here to talk back to me. I don't like talking to myself all day. But we're kind of getting at the end of pronouns, and next we're going to be starting adjectives. Hooray! I love adjectives. They are my favorites because they describe things. I'm going to get excited about them, and we're not there yet, so I have to quit talking about them. But I'm wanting us to finish up on pronouns, and hopefully this week we're going to finish on pronouns and begin adjectives next week. So we're going to just open up at the unit at the beginning of pronouns, which is page 161 for you. Unit 9, pronouns, calling, and the substitutes. I am very quickly going to go over several blue boxes, and it will be helpful to you if you will open your book and go over those boxes with me, so that when we get ready to do some of our work, that your mind can be good and refreshed on these substitutes called pronouns. I put my chart of personal pronouns up here. If you can see that, you can look over those. But here we go. Pronouns are our noun substitutes. Again, I'm on page 161. Because we know quite a bit about nouns, we know a lot about nouns. The next best part of speech will seem easy, and that is our pronoun. It is the third part of speech. It is our noun substitute. The blueprint. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. For example, Jezebel vowed that Jezebel would capture Elijah. Remember, we talked about how if we did not have these substitutes, how boring our reading would get if we said, for example, if I was going to tell a story about Carly, and through the whole story I said Carly, 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 Carly. What could I say instead? I could say she, I could say her, I could say herself, I could say their. If I was talking about her friends, I could say them. So that's where these substitutes come in so handy, because we don't want to say Carly, 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 Carly through our whole story. An antecedent, important word. Antecedent is the noun for which a pronoun stands. If I'm saying, Carly went out into her yard and gathered eggs from her chicken, because we all know that Carly has a farm. We know that I'm talking about Carly when I say her, because I have said the antecedent of Carly, which is what, everybody? Carly. Let's go on down to personal pronouns. Again, that's on my chart up here. The person speaking, our personal pronouns would be I, me, my, mine, we, us, our, ours. The person spoken to would be you, your, and yours on personal pronouns. And the person spoken about, you can see that list there and read that to yourself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on our individual pronouns because we really went over that a lot in class, but I do want to hit some of these blue boxes. Let's go on over to, let's skip page 163. It's basically about your personal pronouns are where your subjects, your direct objects, possessive nouns are going to come in. And then you have a chart on page 164 if you need to review that. It's an excellent review on your nominative case, your objective case, and your possessive case. Very important, so you might want to review that. More about personal pronouns on page 165. Here is where I'm wanting to focus a little bit on page 167. Everybody with me on page 167? If you're not there, turn there for me. Nominative case. As you have learned the nominative case pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, they can be used as subjects or as predicate nominatives. He loves lasagna. Who is our he? It's substituting for our noun. Let's say Hunter loves lasagna, but our pronoun is he. Can we use it as a subject? Most definitely. Here it's going to be used as a predicate nominative. The next speaker will be he. Now, again, taking place, substituting of a noun. How do we know this is a predicate nominative? I hope you're responding here with me. We're going to look at our verb. What is our verb? Will be. What kind of verb is it? A linking verb. Therefore, we know we're using this pronoun as a predicate nominative here because it is a linking verb. If it was an action verb, what would it be? I just heard you shout out direct object, but here it's going to be a predicate nominative. Moving on to Objective case, if you need some brush up on that on page 168, go ahead and read over that box. Page 171, compound pronouns. You all did really well on compound pronouns. The suffixes self and selves, that's a lot of S's for me, can be added to the following personal pronouns to make compound pronouns. Just because we're making them compound does not change their form. They are still pronouns. For example, him to himself, her to herself, it to itself, and so on. Everybody go down to the blueprint with me. And again, I'm so sorry I'm reviewing so quickly. Compound personal pronouns are used in the predicate to refer back to the subject or to add emphasis. They do not take the place of personal pronouns. For example, help yourself, there's my compound pronoun, help yourself to some more spaghetti. The compound pronoun refers to the same person as the subject, which is understood you there. And let's see where I'm needing to, we have a lot of blue boxes still. Let's go to blue box on page 174. Oh, we had a little trouble with these. Let's review this really quickly. Sometimes these don't feel like they should be pronouns. So sometimes we're not grabbing them in the sentence as our pronoun, but they are pronouns. I'm going to read the box at the top. The following pronouns are called indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns do not have an antecedent. That's where we're having trouble. The antecedent is the noun that we're replacing. These don't have them, and they don't change form. The best thing to do is memorize this chart to remember what they are. I know we didn't take time to do this, but the more you know this chart, the easier they're going to be recognizable in your work. Let me just go, I just want to read through them, and I would like for your eyes to follow along, or if you want to read them out loud with me, that would make me super happy. Here we go. Singular, I'm going to go down in the column. Each, either, neither, one, everyone. That's not, everyone and everybody's pretty easy to pick up on a pronoun. For one thing, they're talking about a person there. No one, nobody, anyone, anybody, someone, or somebody. I think the ones that you had most trouble with 6th grade was each and either. Those were tricky ones for you. So get that in your mind that those are pronouns. Plural in the middle. Quickly, both, few, several, and many. Singular or plural. Some, any, none, all, most. We kind of had trouble recognizing some of these plural, singular, or plural ones in sentences, especially like any, all, and most. So again, you might want to spend a little extra time reviewing this chart. Page 175. Does you agree? Remember how we laughed when we went over that because that question just sounds crazy. Does you agree? I'm going to just go over the blue on this box. If you need to read the examples, please pause me and go ahead and do that. You can pause me anytime to study a little further. These indefinite pronouns are singular and take a singular verb, and they're listed there. Here's a couple examples. Each is a pronoun. We seem to keep forgetting that. Each of the students has received a report slip. Everyone is accountable to God, and oh yes they are. Someone in the vast crowd of people was crying. Next blueprint. These indefinite pronouns are plural, so therefore they're going to take a plural verb. Both of the men were found. We would not say was found. Why? Because our pronoun is both, meaning more than one. Many of us have never been to Jerusalem. Again, plural pronoun takes a plural verb. Actually, I'm going to keep moving just because of time's sake. I looked at how long I kept you on math and I was like, oh no, that's too long. I love demonstrative and interrogative pronouns. They're easy for one thing. Remember, I got my pointer out in class with demonstrative pronouns. I'm going to go down to those first. I'm on the blue box on page 178. If it is a demonstrative pronoun, then it is something you can point to. That book is the wrong one. Oh goodness, examples are leaving me. Looking around my basement, it doesn't have anything to do with school. This shirt is not in our uniform code. Those pencils need to be sharpened. Anything that I can point to when I say that word is demonstrative. I can demonstrate it. Hope you remember that lesson. Interrogative pronouns, they're easy. You know why they're easy? What does an interrogative sentence do? It asks a question. What do you think an interrogative pronoun is going to do? It's going to be one of your question words. Easy peasy. Here we go. Page 178. An interrogative pronoun comes at the beginning of a sentence, easily recognizable, and it's going to ask a question. Interrogative is a question, asks a question. Interrogative pronouns asks a question. The interrogative pronouns are who, whom, whose, which, and what. Remember that from review? I hope so. Next page. Diagramming pronouns. Guess what? I'm not going to make you review that because I know you all hate diagramming. I love diagramming, but I know you don't. Page 181, blue at the very top. Pronouns used as subjects or predicate nominatives must be in the nominative case. We went over that quite a bit. That has to do with your linking verbs. Let's go to our box and everybody say linking verbs with me. You all know them by heart, so say them with me. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, taste, feel, smell, sound, look, appear, become, seem, grow, remain, stay. If it is a nominative pronoun, nominative case, it's going to have a linking verb. Oh boy, and I think we're done with review, so we're just going to do some review work because, as I said, if you skim over the next couple of pages, you will see that they're all review. And on page 188, we start adjectives. Yay, 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 yay. So we're going to go to page 182. We're ready to actually do some work. I think I put on your syllabus page 182. Oh, to 183, think B. Yes. Let's go over some of these. I'm going to do some of these with you, and then let's see, on your syllabus I put page 184, do 6 through 10 on notebook paper. Oh, sorry. Okay, good. Forget that. I'm sorry. I'm thinking and reading at the same time here, and you know that never goes well. Page 182. At the bottom, think B. I think we did some of 182 while we were in class still. I'm not wanting to take time to review direct object, indirect object, and I know you all don't want me to. So let's go on down to think B. Cross out each incorrect pronoun in the following sentences and write the correct pronoun form above it. Put C before the sentence which has sentences which have no pronoun errors. I am going to give you a hint. 5 of them are correct. Let's do some of these together. Trying to decide, let's just do these together. So write think B in your book. You don't have to put that on notebook paper. If you've already put it on notebook paper, that's fine. You can turn that into me. But let's do them together in your book. And I don't know if I'm going to take, I do want to take time to do all of them. So I might skip around. I don't know how long. I'm already on 15 minutes almost. I talk too much. I've got to stop that. All right, here we go. Number 1 on think B. Samuel and me had an argument last night. Sometimes we talk so quickly that we're making these grammatical mistakes. But what's wrong with this? Our pronoun me. To test ourselves, don't forget, you can take out the beginning. You can take out Samuel and say it without that part. Me had an argument last night. Would we say, I hope you wouldn't say me had an argument last night. We would say I had an argument last night. That's how we know that if we put it with another noun, Samuel and I had an argument last night. So let's cross out that me and put I. Number 2, Mrs. Bevington photocopied a booklet of essays by us 6th graders. Our pronoun that we're going to be looking at is us. What do you think? Jacob Smith, I hope you said that that was correct. Number 3, was it she who left her purse here? That's one of those funny sentences that I always say, we don't really talk like that, but you know what? I'm hoping Brianna said that that is correct as well. Number 4, did Anthony and them see the cakes that we girls baked? We have 2 pronouns here, them and we. What do we think about them? Them is incorrect. What do we want to change it to? I hope you have crossed it out and put they. Number 5, the adults and us young people played an exciting game of volleyball. Again, this is one where you can use that rule to take out the beginning of the sentence. Us young people played an exciting game of volleyball. You can even take out young people there. Or do we want to say we played an exciting game? Which one would fit better? Of course, when you hear it out loud, you can tell that it is we. So we're changing us to we. Number 6, Mr. Johnson gave she and I a tour of the dairy. What do you guys think? We have 2 pronouns there of she, I. They do need to be changed. They are not correct. I hope you changed them to Mr. Johnson gave her and me a tour of the dairy. Number 7, my brother and me go fishing quite often, but we seldom catch anything. That seems to be what happens to me whenever I go fishing with my sons. So if we took out the beginning of the sentence and said, me go fishing quite often, does that make sense? No, we know we need to change that pronoun to I go fishing quite often. Number 8, the author of this novel is he. That is correctamundo. Number 9, Lucas, here's a good one for you because your dad's name is here. Nathan and him had a good time at the art festival. Again, take out the beginning. Checking out those personal pronouns, we would want to say he had a good time at the art festival. So we're changing that him to he. Number 10, our aunt sent we girls a picture of her new house. What do you think? Dylan, what do you think here? Our aunt sent us girls or we girls? I'm going to tell you, this one's kind of tricky. It is definitely us girls. Number 11, it is I who have the measles. My sister has the mumps. Ooh, both of you are sick. So guess what that one is? I hope you all said correct. Lost my spot here. Number 12, it is us boys who must rake the leaves. Daniel, what do you think here? Are you and Tyson raking the leaves? If you are, it shouldn't be us boys, but we should change that to we boys. Number 13, in the photograph, that is my cousin standing beside the horse and I. We can take something out here. If we take it out, if we take some of our nouns out in the photograph, that is my cousin standing beside, do you want to say I or me? We want to change that pronoun from I to me in our objective case. Number 14, can it be her or she that read that poem? Yeah. What do you think here? Natalie, I hope you corrected her to she because she is correct. I don't really like that sentence very much. Number 15, Jasmine and me saw, oh, here's another one for Natalie. Jasmine and me saw Natalie and her at the shopping center. Several pronouns here, only one of them needs to be changed. I hope you changed me to I. Number 16, the new girl that sits between him and me is named Isabella. 16 is, what do you think, Addison? It is correct. And 17, us boys helped father with the yard work. Hope you all changed us to we. And if we were in class together, you would have been doing that more on your own than me giving you all the answers. Let's go on down to Think C. Think C, I'm going to do 1 through 5 with you. Nope, I'm sorry, we're not doing Think C at all. It's diagramming. Let's skip over to page 184. I'm looking at your syllabus at the same time. And I'm already on 20 minutes of language, which is going too long. Guys, what can I do to shorten this? I've got to quit talking so much. I wanted to do this sentence with you. I'm going to do the sentence. I'm sorry. You're just going to have to listen to me keep talking. Page 184, this sentence on notebook paper. Don't do any of this on notebook paper. I'm going to say that again. Don't do any of this on notebook paper. We're just going to review very quickly to see if this is a fragment or a sentence or a run-on. This is just a little bit of a review for us. It's always good to review these. I'm going to read this aloud. Number one, once considering to be flat, once considered to be flat. All right, does that leave us hanging? Yes. What is automatically going to be a, let me hear it, everybody say it, fragment. Number two, the earth is now known to be a sphere that is slightly flattened at its poles. Do we have a subject and verb there? Yes, we do. So what do we have? We have a sentence. Number three, before Columbus's journey, explorers feared that they might drop off the edge of the world. Again, we've got a good subject and verb there. It completes a thought. So what do we have again, everybody? Let me hear it. Sentence. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Number four, if they sailed too far, leaves me hanging on a cliff. What's it going to be? A fragment. Number five, some even imagine fierce dragons waiting under the earth to devour them. I got a subject and verb. I got a complete thought. So what's it going to be? Sentence. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And number six, in light of these fears, we realize how brave Christopher Columbus really was. He dared to go against the tide of ignorance and superstition. Number six is what? Let me hear it nice and loud. Louder, louder. It is a run-on. Awesome job. Let's go on down to capitalization and punctuation. Here I'm going to do number 1 through 5 with you. I want you to do 6 through 10 on notebook paper. Yes, I want you to write the whole sentence for me. And mark each incorrect small letter. Add the punctuation where needed. If you just want to fix the punctuation as you write instead of putting in punctuation marks, that's fine with me. I'm just looking for the correct sentence. Number 1, the Brooklyn Bridge spans the East River in New York City. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 proper nouns that need what? Capitalization. So if I was going to have you write number 1, you would be capitalizing the Brooklyn Bridge, all capitalized, spans the East River, both capitalized, in New York City, all capitalized. If you're having trouble on punctuation, go back and look up those units in your language book to help you with these sections. Number 2, the graduating class of Victory Christian School. Victory Christian School is a what? Help me out here, Ariana. Victory Christian School is a proper noun. What do we need to do? Of course, capitalize all 3 of those words. And addressed by Bernard Olson, PhD. Matthew Cooper. What do we have here? Again, we have proper nouns. We are trying to go fast. We are capitalizing Bernard Olson. And, ooh, something else. We need to put a comma after Olson and a period after PH and a period after D. I didn't know they were throwing those in there. All right, I'm hitting 23 minutes, so I'm going to quit talking. So, I'm not going to do 3 through 5 for time's sake. I want you to go ahead and do 6 through 10 on notebook paper. Again, let me give you the directions. 6 through 10, you can just write it with the corrections. For example, Bic on 6 is the name brand. Don't forget, we capitalize name brands. We do not have to capitalize ballpoint because it's the item. We only capitalize the name brand. So if I was writing this on my homework paper, I would write my capital B Bic and then lowercase ballpoint and so on, and fix anything else that needs to be fixed in those sentences. I hope those directions help. We are moving next into, let's see here. Let's go ahead and do some reading next. So I will see you in reading in just a few minutes. Last week you started health, and I'm so sad that I'm not with you to do health because I love it so much. I enjoy everything about health. I love teaching it. I love talking about it. And I know many of you are looking forward to it as well. And here we're doing it distance learning, and I wish I was with you. Last week you read up to page 14 in health. Tomorrow, because I've talked so much in math and language today, tomorrow I'm going to go over your highlights with you for that. But I hope you're enjoying it. I think health is an easy peasy class, especially in the very beginning. A lot of the stuff you already know. Soon we're going to get into more of the, let me get a couple charts. Soon we're going to get into more of learning the different systems of our body, which I love to discuss. So you'll, a lot of that you don't already know, so that's some of the things that we're going to learn about. The endocrine system, the lymphatic system. Oh, I know, I'm terrible at holding these charts up, but when we actually learn about them, I'll get them posted for you. The nervous system is a fun one to learn about. I love health because God created our bodies in such an amazing way. I think not only the beauty of the earth really shows how great He is, but our bodies, the way they work, the systems that are in them, just show His awesomeness in such a wonderful way. And so I'm excited about this. But we're just going to start at page 15 because I believe you went 1 through 14 last week. And again, like I said, we'll go over highlights for that tomorrow. And we're picking up at safe swimming techniques, which is really a great thing with summer coming. I know a lot of you have pools. I know a lot of you visit pools. Swimming safety is very important. And so let's pick up there. Also, before I begin, you should have had a poster board in your packet this past Friday. You're going to be making a safety poster for health, and I should have by now sent you out a Jupiter message on that. So if you haven't seen that, go check on Jupiter. It's going to give you everything that you need on it. It will be for a grade, so break out that creativity that you have locked away during this quarantine time. I would love for it to be creative. I don't want you going to the store to buy things for it. I will say that several times. I don't want you out. You're supposed to be at home and safe. So just use whatever you have on hand at home. If you have colored pencils, if you have markers, if you have crayons, if you have any construction paper. If you don't, that's fine. If you have any magazines, that's fine as well. So just, we'll talk more about that later though, because I'm going to try not to talk too long for health today. Page 15, let's just get started there. I want to read this with you. I will give you some highlights possibly as we go. And I would probably discuss it more with you if we were together and other than just reading. But just follow along with me for now. I might stop and discuss some of it. We'll see. But as I said, we will talk more about our safety poster that's due on Thursday. I'm on page 15, safe swimming techniques. Drowning is one of the leading causes of accidental death in the United States. During the summertime, on the news, we often hear about little children that have gotten in swimming pools and have drowned, and it nearly breaks my heart. And one reason why that happens sometimes is just because of safety rules that were not followed. So let's listen closely. Most of these fatalities are the results of swimming and boating accidents in which the victims either did not know how to swim or did not put some basic safety rules into practice. I hope you're all following along. Drowning results from suffocation or blocked breathing underwater. Many drownings are caused by unnecessary fear and panic on the part of the victim, which would be easy to do. If you feel that sensation, what's the first thing you want to do? Your body wants to panic, but try to make sure it doesn't if you find yourself in that situation. Gasping and flailing your arms in panic will cause you to go underwater quickly and make it extremely difficult for someone to rescue you. In any situation, I always say, stay calm. Unconditioned and unsafe. Have you ever bragged about how long you can stay underwater? Yes, I have a feeling all of you have done that. Many swimmers get into trouble when they try to exert themselves beyond their physical abilities. You should get out of the water whenever you are tired or you get too cold, because your muscles may contract suddenly, causing a cramp. We've all had those muscle cramps. They happen often in water. If you think you're getting one, get out. Some cramps may be so severe that even an experienced swimmer may drown because he cannot control his cramped muscles. Survival of the, don't have my glasses on, I think this says floatiest. Survival of the floatiest, yes it does. If you are totally submerged in water, your body can float naturally, because a submerged person with lungs full of air is slightly lighter than the same volume of water. So the air in your lungs helps you to stay above the water. Every swimmer knows that the survival float can avoid most kinds of drowning incidents. To perform the survival float, there is, I'm going to let you read over that right there. There's a diagram of that. There's the relaxed position. There's where you can exhale underwater. Lift your head to inhale. Please don't inhale underwater. You're going to get a nose full or a mouthful of water. And then again, return to your relaxed position. So read that section over, look at that diagram down there, and I'm flipping over to page 16. In cold water, it is better to keep your head out of the water. I hope everybody sees where I'm at. I'm at the bold in the second paragraph. By floating in the heat escape lessening posture, also known as HELP. This is important. Immersing your head underwater speeds up the rate at which your body loses heat or at which you get colder. When using the HELP position, what does HELP stand for again? It stands for heat escape lessening posture. Keep your face out of the water. This diagram down here shows you to draw your knees up, cross your arms over your chest. Why don't you get out of your chair wherever you're sitting and practice that position real quick. I'm not going to do that because my camera won't go down there. But practice that HELP position. Going over to up to discuss. Let's go over that question. Why is it unsafe to have contests with your friends to see who can stay underwater the longest? I honestly think everybody has done that. I've seen my own kids do that when we were in the pool, and of course I've told them not to. If you hold your breath for so long, what can happen? You can pass out. If you pass out, you're going to inhale that water. Once you pass out, your body's going to automatically inhale, and that can cause drowning. Your friends might not realize that you've actually passed out underwater, think you're just being silly. So don't do it. Ocean hazards. If you live near an ocean, you know how much fun a day at the beach can be. Sadly, we do not live near an ocean. Jacob Smith used to live near an ocean. I was jealous of him. The sounds of waves beating the sandy shore, seagulls flying overhead, the warmth of the sun and the cool, refreshing salt water seem to draw crowds by the hundreds. The beach is my favorite place. Although enjoyable, the ocean can be hazardous if you are unaware of its dangers. Sorry, I was checking our syllabus. When you swim in an ocean, you should swim parallel to the shore rather than away from it. So here's the shore, and you should be swimming in that same direction, parallel to the shore. Do not swim out with a current, because you might be unable to swim back. If you get caught in a current, don't try to swim against it. Again, as I always say, stay calm. Wait until the pulling action lessens and then swim closer to shore. If you try to fight a current, your body is going to end up exhausted and not be able to swim back to shore. There's a safety tip down here at the bottom. Remember to work with the current and not against it. Safety tip at the top of page 17. Practice safe swimming techniques to stay calm during a water emergency. Exercise caution when swimming in the ocean. And I'm sure that you all do that. Let's go to check yourself. If you can say yes to these, then check them. Just check them in your book. It's not anything I'll be grading. I never swim alone. Don't ever swim alone. Always make sure you have someone in the water with you or watching you. The next one, I always enter the water feet first the first time when swimming in a new or unfamiliar location. Why would you want to do that? If you go head first, you might not know that something is dangerous down there. Always go in feet first. I get out of the water when I am tired or chilled. I know and practice the survival float, which you've just learned, so now you know it. I stay away from the water during an electrical storm. Yes, if it's lightning, get out of the water. I hope you were able to check all of those. Now going from our summer sports to our winter sports. We don't have a lot of snow around here, even though we want it all the time. I do anyways. But let's discuss some of our winter sports. With snow and ice and frigid weather comes the opportunity for you to enjoy many winter sport activities. During the winter months, you may participate in such sports such as ice hockey. Braden Sweeney, as you all know, was in my class the last 2 years, and he grew up in Minnesota and loves ice hockey. He is a great ice skater. Sledding, ice skating, skiing, snowmobiling, snowboarding, and even snowball throwing. If so, be sure to dress warm. You don't want hypothermia or frostbite. Highlight the next sentence at the top of page 17. If you don't have a highlighter at home, at least underline it in your book with a pen or pencil. Hypothermia occurs when the body temperature drops below normal. It's the opposite of when your body has a fever, your temperature goes up. With hypothermia, your temperature goes down. Here's a little comic at the top of our safety tip with a little girl in purple coat and hat. Make sure your hands, feet, face, and ears are well protected from freezing temperatures. Again, hypothermia occurs when the body temperature drops below normal because of too much exposure to cold. If the hypothermia victim does not do something to warm himself, he grows weaker and muscles stiffen. If he still does nothing to increase his body temperature, his speech begins to slur, his body slows down, and his memory fails. In time, he will lose consciousness, and eventually he will die. We read a lot about this in our Balto story about when the dog sled leaders were trying to stay warm, and that's why they were trying to, because they did not want to get hypothermia because it was so dangerous for them. You can protect yourself from hypothermia by wearing enough clothing. Be sure you wear a winter cap and a scarf because over half of your body's heat escapes through your head. Even with a coat, a hat, and a scarf, there is a chance that you still might become chilled. Layer your clothing. An extra layer of clothing can always be taken off if you get too warm. And I know I'm skipping some, but just skip along with me here. Next paragraph on page 18. There may be times when you will discover that you are not adequately prepared for cold weather. Your clothes might get wet from the rain or the snow, or the weather may change suddenly. So you need to keep additional clothing to keep you warm. When you begin to shiver, put on more clothing. Just like in school, when we get cold, we go get on one of our uniform jackets. Dry, warm clothing will help your body regain its proper temperature. Frostbite, highlight this. Frostbite is the freezing of body tissue. Stop highlighting there. It is another injury that occurs when body parts are exposed too long to freezing temperatures. Your hands, your feet, your cheeks, and your ears and your nose are most susceptible to frostbite. You'll notice that when we do have a snow day and we do get a little snow, your ears get so cold, sometimes they start to hurt. The end of your nose gets very cold. Frostbite can be prevented by staying inside, of course. Or if you must go outside, what do we need to do? We need to dress very warmly. The colder the weather is, the more protection you need. If you wear gloves, socks, or boots that are too tight, you're going to hurt yourself more because it's going to squeeze in that blood circulation and make your hands and feet where the blood won't circulate. So guess what? Frostbite will set in faster. So make sure they're not too tight. Going up to the next column, cold weather activities. When you are properly dressed for freezing weather, you can enjoy a variety of winter sports reserved especially for snow and ice. Sledding, tobogganing, snowmobiling, snowboarding, skiing, and ice skating. And sadly, because we live in Tennessee, we don't get to experience a lot of these. A thick blanket of snow changes a hill into a sled run. Skipping on down. Look far enough ahead to avoid trees if you are sledding. I'm going to skip back up a little. Avoid dangerous obstacles. Lakes freeze. Even though there's a sheet of ice on, don't walk out on it, especially in the South, because it's not frozen completely. Next paragraph. You should avoid any type of automobile traffic when you are using skis or other snow equipment. Do not sled down or across a street. Slick roads make it difficult for drivers to stop quickly if you are sliding down in front of them. If you live near a pond or a lake that freezes during the winter, have an adult check the thickness of the ice before you walk on it, play on it, or skate on it. It needs to be at least 4 inches thick before it is safe to play on. Never play or skate on ice unless you have permission. And again, these hazards are not huge to us because we live in Maryville, Tennessee. Wilderness sports. Some recreational activities may not be called sports, but are still considered sporting events. These are activities such as hiking, hunting, camping, or roughing it in the backyard or a vacant lot. Now, we do experience this a little more often because we live near the Smokies, and a lot of people camp near the Smokies. I know Hunter's family is a big camping family. Lucas loves to go camping. So these are things we want to pay a little more attention to. Safety tips down here. Carry water with you, even if it's on a short hike, and we know the importance of drinking water, so make sure you always have that with you. We're going to go, it says on your syllabus to stop at Woodland, but that's not the Woodland you're supposed to stop at. So we're going on over to the next column. Woodland mishaps. When planning a hike, make sure you have not only the gear you will need, but also 1 or more friends or family members to go with you. Never hike alone. If you were to become lost or injured, you would need help. Tragedies often occur needlessly, simply because someone is alone. Never go alone, and don't think, oh, I have my cell phone, because often when we get on these adventures, we don't have any service on our cell phone. Most states require hunters to wear fluorescent orange or red so that they can easily be distinguished in the woods. We've all seen that. Even if you are not hunting, you should wear brightly colored clothing if you are near the woods during any hunting season. You don't want a hunter to mistake you for an animal that is moving. Camping care. For those of you who enjoy the adventures of roughing it, trying to think if any others of you camp very often, other than Lucas and Hunter. I can't remember you mentioning it to me. To ensure that your camping experiences will be full of good memories, a few safety precautions need to be practiced. If you should find a brook or stream while you are camping, do not assume that the water is safe to drink. The best policy is to boil the water for 5 minutes and then drink it once it has cooled. This method kills any microorganisms, which are microscopic germs, including bacteria and viruses, in the water that could cause discomfort or a lot of sickness. Don't drink the water unless it's been boiled. Take bottled water. Do not try to start a campfire yourself. An adult should do that with you. Make sure the fire is well contained and protected from the wind so that it cannot spread. As many of you remember, a couple of years ago, not this summer, but the one before that, we had the fires in the Smoky Mountains. It was a very scary time for our area. It destroyed so many homes. It destroyed acres and acres of our beautiful Smoky Mountains. So make sure that wind cannot cause your fire to spread. When the time comes to put out the fire at the end of your outing, drown the fire with buckets of water or smother it with sand or dirt. We know that once it's smothered from the oxygen, it cannot continue to burn. No burning embers, which could spark and start a forest fire, should remain. Safety tip: don't venture into the woods alone. Never use gasoline to start a fire. It's going to make a bigger fire. Discuss why is it dangerous to use gasoline to start a fire. We just discussed that. It could explode, it could burn you. all kinds of reasons. No gasoline. And we are stopping there today for health, woodland wisdom. Going to be starting to talk about some more things tomorrow that are definitely prevalent to us here in Tennessee during our outside summertime, which we're coming up on. Whew. So keep your health book handy. You don't have any work to do other than working on your safety poster, which is due on Thursday. After this, we will be having history today. So I will see you in history. We are picking up this afternoon. It's afternoon for me anyways. I don't know if it is for you or not, but on How to Eat Fried Worms again by Thomas Rockwell. We left Friday. We had stopped where Tom was trying to convince, I'm sorry, not Tom, but Alan and Joe were trying to convince Billy that their parents had said something that would be terrible if they ate worms, but they couldn't stop laughing long enough to make up their joke or their lie. But Billy is still having trouble eating the worms. I think he's on the 5th worm maybe, but he's able to eat them, but it's the thought of it still getting to him. So let's pick up here, and we're going to read about Tom today, and we are on chapter 11. Billy pushed the frying pan toward Tom. Okay, if it's not supposed to hurt you, then you eat a piece. Oh no, said Alan. He and Joe were lying on their stomachs in the hayloft watching. Billy, if he eats a piece, you lose, Billy. The bet was that you were going to eat 15 worms, not you and him together. Billy didn't look up, his eyes fixed grimly on Tom. All right, then I'll go dig another worm, just for him. He's so big, telling me, hurry up, I can't wait around all day. Don't be a sissy. All right, now, I didn't say sissy, said Tom uncomfortably. I just said, if the first 4 worms didn't kill you, this one wouldn't. I can't help it if my mother told me to be home by 2 o'clock today. She's going shopping, so I have to watch my brother. Yeah, said Billy. Okay, so we'll just have time for you to eat a worm before you go. Come on, where's the shovel? So now Billy's wanting his friends to start eating worms too. Here, said Alan from the loft, we brung, wrong grammar, we brung an extra today. A worm dangled squirming from his fingers. He dropped it to Billy. It's not cooked, said Tom. I'll do it, said Joe, scrambling down the ladder. He took the worm from Billy and ran out, then ran back and grabbed the frying pan. Tom sat down on an overturned pail to wait. He didn't want to eat any worm. It wasn't his bet. He glanced at the door creaking in the wind. Maybe he should make a break for it. Of course, he could see Billy's point. Billy didn't believe Joe's story, but still, he'd find it reassuring if Tom ate some worm too. He'll eat it, Billy was saying to Alan. If he don't, he's chicken, said Alan. After all his talk. Why don't I eat it, thought Tom. I mean, it's a yucky thing to do, but it wouldn't kill me. I don't know, thought Tom. I just won't, I guess. He gagged, imagining what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He glanced at the door again. Billy kicked the door shut. Leave it open, said Tom. Why? Because I said so. Yeah, well, you don't own this barn. Neither do you. Your father does. Billy rubbed his nose, watching Tom, figuring he's going to pick a fight so he won't have to eat a worm. Okay. Billy opened the door and set a brick against it. Tom shifted his seat on the pail again. He couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He scratched his ear. Who did Billy think he was, trying to order people around, telling them that they had to eat and all? Billy wasn't anybody's father. Tom began to feel put upon and stubborn. A screen door slammed. Joe coming back with the worm. Tom licked his lips. He heard Joe running across the barnyard toward them. Billy, shouted Alan. Billy spun around just in time to catch a glimpse of Tom pelting out the door banging shut. He flung to the window. Joe sprawled in the middle of the barnyard on his back. Tom was clambering over the wall into the meadow. The frying pan lay upside down by the horse trough. So Tom chickened out. Chapter 12, the fifth worm. Now we're on the fifth worm. Look, said Billy to himself, staring down at the fried worm on the plate. Be sensible. How can it hurt me? I've eaten 4 already. Tom was just scared. He's like that. He eggs other people on, but he never wants to do anything himself. Give up? Asked Alan. Come on, said Joe. We haven't got all day. 5 more minutes, said Alan, and then I win. There's no time limit, said Billy. For the first time, he wondered what he'd do if he lost. Where could he ever get $50? But how could he eat 10 more? Big, fat, ugly, soft, brown things. He couldn't ask his father for $50. He heard Alan and Joe whispering together. He's gonna quit. Yeah, I knew he'd make it when I bet with him. He talks big. Him and Tom are just the same, but they never do anything. Billy gritted his teeth, glopped on ketchup, mustard, salt, grated cheese, whatever was on the crate, anything, everything, and then grabbed at the worm, tore it apart with his hands, stuffing it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing and gulping. Then panting, he reached out and wiped his gooey hands on Alan's trousers and grinned messily up at him and said, there's 5. Chapter 13, nothing to worry about. That night, Alan asked his father to show him $50. After that, he couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in his rumpled bed. Suppose he lost. He could see himself asking his father for $50, begging for it on his knees, tears streaming down his face, and then at Thanksgiving dinner, cringing, while all his aunts and uncles and cousins roared over his father's story of Alan's bet. He slid out of bed and snuck down the carpeted hall to his parents' bedroom. You got to wake him, Mrs. O'Hara, you got to, he whispered into the phone. It's an emergency. I got to speak to him. Pause. I got a hoarse throat, Mrs. O'Hara. That's why I'm whispering. Please, pause. Thanks, Mrs. O'Hara. No, I won't ever call this late again. It's... He waited, gnawing on his thumbnail. A board creaked on the stairs. He stiffened. Silence. What do you want? Said Joe suddenly over the telephone. I was sleeping. You woke me up. Joe, suppose I lose. My father'll never let me take the money out of my savings account. I know he won't. You think I'll lose, Joe? Huh? Joe, tell me. Give it to me straight, Joe. I got to know. I can't sleep. Joe sighed. Look, I told you this afternoon, you got nothing to worry about. He's cracking. Sure, he ate that one today. Sure, he might. And this is chapter 14, the pain and the blood and the gore. 4 blocks away, Billy suddenly found himself in a brightly lit butcher shop, jostling by a crowd of enormous, pigeon-breasted, middle-aged women, shouting to make himself heard over the din of their chatter and the roars of butchers, ordering about the weasel-faced boys who were lugging haunches and tubs of meat in and out of the refrigerator room in the rear. Then a butcher saw Billy jumping and jumping among the women and asked for his order, and Billy gave it. And suddenly he was shoved up close to the chopping block, and the butcher slapped down 10 black worms as big as snakes, and Billy tried to say they were too big, he'd choke on them. But the butcher couldn't hear him over the thumps of his cleaver and the din of the women and the hoarse shouts of the other butchers. And before Billy knew what was happening, he was seated at a table at Longchamp's restaurant on Times Square in New York City with a large napkin tied under his chin, and a waiter was uncovering a platter on which lay one of the huge black worms, coiled snakily, a red rose wobbling in the center of its coils. How can I ever finish it, said Billy, and cut into a mammoth coil. Steaming pink juice flooded out. Billy ate and ate and ate, and then looked, and he must have eaten more than that. And then he looked again, and there was no hole at all. He had eaten and eaten and eaten, and nothing at all. And then he felt something cold on his ankles and looked under the tablecloth, and there were 2 more of the huge worms wound around and around his ankles. And then he felt something weighing down his arm, and he looked, and there was another worm wound around his arm, glaring hungrily at him with its bloodshot eyes. And from everywhere in the vast room, winding between the tables, waiters approached carrying huge silver platters. And Billy opened his eyes. For the first moment in the moonlight flooding in his bedroom, his 2 bare feet sticking up out of the bottom of the covers looked like 2 huge worms' heads. And then he realized that he had been dreaming, and he sank back into his pillow, the nightmare melting away. There were no huge worms as big as pythons. He was at home in bed. His parents were asleep in the next room. His stomach rumbled. But suppose Joe hadn't been lying. The hair stood up on the back of his neck. Or suppose Joe had made it all up, but had been right anyway without knowing it. A shutter banged. Billy glanced out the window and saw the moon riding among the tossing leaves. His stomach rumbled and gurgled. He groaned. Suppose he was dying. He'd heard of people waking up in the middle of the night with pains in their stomachs, and then, as the windows turned gray in the dawn, they died. Toadstools, soured lobsters, tainted pork. There was a pain. He clutched his stomach and, groaning, half fell, half staggered out of his bed and hobbled toward the door, bent over. Maybe there was an antidote, he whimpered. It didn't hurt a lot, but nothing ever did to begin with, did it? And we're going to stop there on chapter 15 for today, and we will pick up again tomorrow. And this is our last class of the day. You have survived your first day of YouTube teaching with me. Congratulations. We're moving into history. So go ahead and get out your history book. And I know that most of you remember at the beginning of the year, I told you how much I love history, because history is what? Let me get another marker. History is his story. And whose story are we talking about when we discuss history? Of course, the Lord's story. History is his story, because we serve a Lord that knows our end from our beginning. Nothing is a surprise to him. And I think that we, in March and April of 2020, are making history. This is going to be a time, this COVID-19, that's going to go down in history books, and you are a part of it. And when I think about this time in history, that you are going to be a miracle part of this history. You are going to be able to tell your children and your grandchildren, that is, if the Lord tarries, what a part you played in this, that you played a part in this by staying home. You're going to tell them about how people went crazy trying to buy toilet paper, how you stayed home and played games and played outside, and your mom cooked all the time, and different things like that. Our gasoline is so cheap right now, which is something to remember for history's sake. One great thing to do would be to write yourself a letter at this time about all the changes that have happened just in the past couple of weeks. Fold it up, put it in an envelope, and put it in your drawer somewhere and hide it. And in a couple of years, go back and read it and just see the changes that this time made. The biggest thing that I think that it's going to change is, I think it's really bringing on a spiritual awakening that many of us need. many of us as Christians need a spiritual awakening to draw closer to the Lord. And those that are far from the Lord, I think they're seeing his mighty hand during this time. And how I got started on all of that, I don't know. But we are in chapter 12 in history. Just a little bit of a review. We've been talking about moving into the 20th century before spring break. The United States in 1900 ranked as one of the 5 major world powers. I don't know if you can remember when we discussed this, but it was the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, and anybody remember the last one? Starts with an R. That would be Russia. And I'm thankful to say we are still one of the great powers of the world today. We talked about life expectancy, excuse me, of men and women in the beginning of the 20th century. And it was short. If you'll remember, I talked about how I, at 47 years old, would be considered an elderly person. Does anyone remember why that is? Why would I be considered elderly back then? Think about it, say your answer out loud, even though I won't hear it. And yes, it's because people passed away at such a younger age. Many of your grandparents are still alive. Some, such as Matthew and Jacob, of your great-grandparents are still alive, which is fantastic. But I can tell you during the time of the 20th century, that would not be the case, because our medicine, our doctors at that time were not nearly as advanced. We've discussed this and you know it, but I just want to remind you of that. So life expectancy of men and women in the early 1900s was shorter than it is now. Railroads instituted standard time. We just have discussed that. There was a very, very famous American black woman. She was the first one to head up a federal agency. Anybody remember her name? Give you a minute to think about it. If you do, shout out the answer. First name was Mary. Anybody else? I'm sure Caitlin Coombs is knowing because she's my great history buff here. Mary McLeod Bethune. She was our first American black woman to head a federal agency. We had a famous mail train that traveled from New York to Chicago. It helped mail get places so much faster. Anybody remember the name of that? It's an easy peasy one. It is called the fast mail. Also, Theodore Roosevelt was president, and during his presidency, there was a canal built that just changed our economy for the better. Anybody remember that canal? It was called the Panama Canal. Very good for any of you that got that answer. There was a man who led the first expedition and he reached the North Pole. First name was Robert. Anybody remember his last name? Going once, twice, 3 times. It was Perry, Robert Perry. Hoping you remember that. Also, we've discussed a famous railroad engineer who died in trying to slow down his crashing train. He died, but he was a hero because he saved many passengers. Anyone remember his name? I talked to you about how the city in Tennessee that Brother Presson and I are from, Jackson, Tennessee, that his famous locomotive is still there, and you can actually sleep in some of his train cars overnight there. And his name was, anybody saying it? I hope you're shouting it out. Casey Jones. Casey Jones. That's just a little bit of review before we move in. Today we are moving to, let me look at your syllabus, pages 215. Let's go ahead and open up there in your history book. 215. Talking more today about President Theodore Roosevelt. He was a fantastic president. Many good things that were said about him. He was the best loved president of the early 1900s. That's a huge compliment because, as you know today, excuse me, I'm trying to talk fast, and you know that does not work well for me. Our presidents receive so much criticism today due to social media and all the facts that are, I shouldn't say facts because many times they're not facts, as you know. But Theodore Roosevelt was our best loved president of the early 1900s. He was affectionately called TR or Teddy by the American people. Theodore Roosevelt became vice president in 1900 when President William McKinley was re-elected president. 6 months after the election, President McKinley was assassinated. And of course, we know that that means he was killed. He was killed by a person who believes all government should be done away with. Now, I disagree with that. Even the Lord says that we need to have a government over us. President McKinley was the third president to be assassinated. Theodore Roosevelt became the 26th president of the United States. And you need to highlight from the very beginning of that section where it talks about the best loved president all the way down to him being the 26th president of the United States. At the age of 42, he became the youngest American president. 42, that's 5 years younger than me. He was a young president. In 1961, John F. Kennedy would become the youngest president ever elected. A happy childhood. Let's talk a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt when he was a boy. He was born in New York City in 1858, just 2.5 years before the Civil War began. His family tree was rich with American heroes. He was related to 9 other men who have been president of the United States. That's amazing. 9 other men in his lineage has been president. John Adams, James Madison, John Quincy Adams, Martin Van Buren, Zachary Taylor, Ulysses S. Grant, Benjamin Harrison, William Howard Taft, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. As well as he was also related to Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee. What an amazing family he had. Young Teddy, as he was called, was close to his family as he was. When he was growing up, he considered his father to be the grandest man he ever knew. What a compliment to his father. And he spoke of his mother as always being gentle and kind. Each morning, the family began the day by gathering around the Bible for family devotions. Teddy's father, knowing that a strong spiritual life was important to all young people, helped found the YMCA. And we've talked about that organization many times. It's still a very popular organization today. A small, weak child, Teddy had poor eyesight and suffered from asthma, a disease of the lungs that hinders breathing. Many of you have asthma even in our class or know a family member that does, so you know some of the trials that he went through as a child. Excuse me. Many times in his childhood diary, he mentioned his asthma and the problems that it caused. Mr. Roosevelt built an indoor gymnasium for 9-year-old Teddy and told him, "Theodore, you have the brains. You have got to make your body. It lies with you to make it. And it's dull," which he kind of meant boring by that, hard work, "but you can do it." Good words from his father. From that day forward, the determination, Theodore Roosevelt began to build his weak body. Even when he was tired and wanting to quit, he pressed on, exercising faithfully every day. As the months passed, he grew stronger. Breathing became easier, but more important, he had learned the lesson of determination. Public servant. There's a picture there of Theodore Roosevelt, and also down here at the bottom right-hand picture or right-hand corner of your book, there's a picture of him. You might recognize that picture from a popular movie. Anybody remember what it's called? Night of the Museum. Theodore Roosevelt was in it, and actually he looks very much like the character that played it. And I love that movie because it showed what an amazing man that he was. Public servant. Because of his weakness, Teddy was mostly taught at home by tutors and did not go to school. So he was kind of homeschooled like you are right now. You have something in common with Mr. Roosevelt. He was strong enough to enter Harvard at the age of 18. And of course, he was an excellent scholar. After graduation from Harvard in 1880, he entered law school to become a lawyer. And while attending law school, he wrote The Naval War of 1812. This was the first of more than 20 books that was written by Theodore Roosevelt. Only after months in law school, he decided to enter politics and become a public servant. In the fall of 1881, he was elected to his first political office, New York State Assemblyman. His courage, determination, and intelligence earned him the respect of all that knew him. He was a highly respected young man. And he was reelected to office 2 more times. Top of the next column, and we're going to go right up to the second column here. Teddy had married shortly after graduating from college. 4 years later, his wife died after giving birth to their daughter, Alice. Teddy's mother also died on the same day as his wife, and we talked about that short life expectancy. And both of these deaths of these 2 prevalent women in his life added to his deep sorrow. He left politics and bought 2 cattle ranches in Dakota Territory. The busy life of a rancher helped him to overcome the grief of losing his wife and his mother. Several years later, however, he did remarry. He and his wife reared a fine family of 4 boys and 2 girls, including the daughter from his first marriage. Theodore Roosevelt loved his children and enjoyed playing with them frequently. Once again, he entered politics and public life. Let's highlight this underlined sentence. He was named Assistant Secretary of the Navy, but resigned when the Spanish-American War of 1898 broke out because he wanted to fight for his country. He wanted to be a part of it. He recruited former college athletes and Western cowboys to create the first volunteer cavalry regiment, later known as the Rough Riders, very famous group of men. As you have already learned, Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders became famous for their part in the war, the taking of San Juan Hill in Cuba. Next page. After the war, Roosevelt was elected governor of New York. His famous motto was, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Let's highlight that. After the war, Roosevelt was elected governor of New York. His famous motto, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." And it described his policy of government. He believed that America needs to be diplomatic with other nations, yes, but that we also need to be prepared for enemy attack by having a large, well-equipped army and navy. And I agree with that. We always need to be prepared. The 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt, became president in 1901 after the tragic death of President McKinley. Remember, we said that he was assassinated. In 1904, the Republicans nominated him for president, and he won this election by the greatest popular margin up until that time. He was a popular man. He was well respected, and he was a very capable leader of the United States of America. Even as president, he continued his physical fitness program so that he could continue to be healthy for his job. He refused to shoot a bear one time while on a hunting trip, and toy makers began making a special stuffed animal called the teddy bear in honor of Teddy Roosevelt. Most of you probably have a teddy bear in your home. This is when it became popular. It became popular because of President Teddy Roosevelt. He had such a good heart, he wouldn't shoot that bear. And so the teddy bear came into existence. I love that story. Highlight that, the teddy bear in honor of Teddy Roosevelt. As president, Theodore Roosevelt stood for honesty in business, strength, and courage in dealing with other countries, and wisdom in conserving our forests and other natural resources. In 1906, he received the Nobel Prize for Peace because of his negotiations to end a war between Russia and Japan. Highlight this. He was the first American to receive a Nobel Prize. And let me talk to you about this just a minute. The Nobel Prize is awarded each year to people from all over the world who are judged to have achieved something for the good of mankind. The prize money was willed to Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel, the inventor of dynamite. Even during this important time that we are living, there are so many people that I have seen on the news, that I have read on the internet, that would certainly qualify for this Nobel Peace Prize. Many of the people that are working to get a vaccine for this COVID-19 and things like that. Those are the kind of people who earn this prize. Roosevelt strengthens our country's defenses because he loved peace. President Roosevelt wanted to do all within his power to make sure that no other country would become a threat to American security. He announced that the United States was responsible to protect the countries of the Western Hemisphere from foreign invasion, and he persuaded his Congress to authorize the construction of 10 battleships and 4 armored cruisers to build up the American States Navy. President Roosevelt knew that this big stick would make other nations very cautious about interfering with our freedoms. He wisely understood that the way to prepare for peace is to be prepared for war in case it should come. I want to say that again. You don't have to highlight it, but I think it's so important. He wisely understood that the way to prepare for peace is to be prepared for war in case it should come. Highlight the next sentence. Highlight the next bold title, the Panama Canal. We talked about this earlier, but they talk about it a little more specifically on this paragraph. To allow the United States battleships to move rapidly between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, President Roosevelt made plans for the building of the Panama Canal. Go ahead and highlight that sentence. President Roosevelt made plans for the building of the Panama Canal. In 1903, he signed a treaty with Panama, which gave the United States control of a strip of land 10 miles wide across the Isthmus of Panama. The United States paid Panama $10 million for the canal zone, plus $250,000 a year beginning in 1913. President Theodore Roosevelt visited Panama while the canal was under construction. This was the first time that a United States president had ever traveled to a foreign country while in office. There's a beautiful picture at the bottom of your page there of the Panama Canal. Going on over to page 218. Building the canal kept 40,000 people busy for 10 years. It was a huge job. 40,000 people worked for 10 years. It was one of the greatest engineering achievements of all time. When the Panama Canal opened in 1914, all nations not at war with the United States were allowed to use it. Because the United States had bought the right to build this canal, they first had to have the approval of the people of Panama to build it. And because the United States had paid over $300 million to build the Panama Canal, the United States now had the right to control it and to protect it from enemies, which was a good thing. Highlight this next sentence. Actually, highlight until I tell you to stop. The Great White Fleet. In 1907, President Roosevelt sent 16 new battleships on a tour around the world. These ships were called the Great White Fleet. Stop highlighting there. And they were called this simply because they were painted white. This goodwill tour received enthusiastic welcomes in many parts of the world. It showed countries that might feel hostile toward the nation that we were a major force that they could not attack without putting themselves in grave danger. So we were kind of showing our muscles to the world, which is not always a bad thing. You want people to know that you have the ability to protect yourself. The discovery of the North Pole. We also talked about this a little bit earlier. President Theodore Roosevelt's President Theodore Roosevelt's determination and love of adventure were reflected in other Americans of his day. Highlight this. Robert Peary, a United States naval officer and Arctic explorer, led the expedition that discovered the North Pole. Highlight all of that. And I am going to tell you that no, they did not find Santa Claus. I am so sorry. He wasn't there. During Peary's first attempt, he got as far north as Greenland's northern coastline and was forced to turn back. 7 years later, in 1907, Peary tried once again to reach the North Pole. He was very determined, as you can tell. He had a special ship called the Roosevelt, of all things, built to travel among the Arctic ice floes. He sailed to the northern coast of Canada's Ellesmere Island, we've talked about that island, and then sledded across the ice toward the North Pole. What fun. Extreme hardships, however, proved to be too much, and the exploration party was forced to turn back once again. They were getting so close. after coming within 200 miles of the North Pole. But he kept on trying, and on his third try, Robert Peary successfully led the remaining members of the exploration party, 4 Eskimos and his black friend Matthew Henson, to the North Pole on April 6th, 1909. And we are coming up on that April 6th on Monday. So if you think of it, celebrate this wonderful thing that Robert Peary did. But again, remember there were no Santa Claus there. Comprehension check 12C, you have a little bit of homework to do. And I need you to put history at the top of your notebook paper for this homework. Tell me the page number or the comp check 12C, that's fine as well. Number it 1 through 4 and answer one of these. They are all pretty easy. Please notice on number 3 that you have a two-part answer. The year the Panama Canal was opened, as well as what countries were eligible to use it. I am going to give you a little hint. It does not give you the individual countries, but it does tell you a group of them. Number 4 also has several, 2 answers. So I will be looking for those double answers on those 2. And we are concluding our school day for today. I hope that all of you have had a good school day. And again, you do not have to do this school at any certain time, but just make sure you finish it each day. So have a wonderful night. Have a good time with your family. And I will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.